Hello everyone, and welcome to my USA Tube Gossip channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Monday, March 17th, 2025. Today on The Young and the Restless, Sharon asks Nick to go to Europe with her. Chance finds some clues, and Phyllis reunites with her children. In a booth at Crimson Lights, Nick hands Sharon a big brownie and a lavender latte as he settles in across from her. She just got off the phone with Mariah and also spoke to Noah. As soon as she got home, she hugged Faith so hard that she made her squeak. The whole time she was captive, she thought of her kids. Nick admires her for doing that and asks if she wants to go home to rest. This is where Sharon wants to be, surrounded by people living their lives and free. "Now I am too, all because of you," she says, taking his hand. She tells him she'll never take making the simplest choices for granted again. Part of taking back control of her life will be finding out who is behind all this. Sharon admits that at one point, she and Phyllis speculated on whether the kidnapper could be someone they knew, even one of their own kids. Whoever was responsible knew so much of their history. Their minds were desperate enough to wonder if one of their kids was trying to teach them a lesson. Nick is confident none of their kids would do such a thing. This all sounds like some form of extreme therapy to him. It was more like an attempted exorcism, she says. He asks if it succeeded. Sharon wants to believe that the ordeal was ironically cathartic. They were forced to come to terms with some of their issues and to save each other's lives. It's insane to Nick that this was all done for someone's entertainment. Sharon explains the voice seemed to be running some kind of psychological experiment. The person behind this must have had some experience in psychology. They knew what games would push the right buttons. She can't help but think of how similar it was to aversion therapy. It was like some twisted therapeutic intervention. Nick is just relieved they are okay. Now they need to figure out who is behind it, so it will never happen again. Phyllis walks down the steps of the athletic club and into the foyer. She looks around anxiously until her children burst through the revolving doors. Once they have enjoyed a group hug, the kids say they've been worried sick. Phyllis is okay now that she's seen her babies. They settle into the dining room. A burger and fries is set before her, as well as a large glass of red wine. The children beam while they watch her gorge. Phyllis likes that she could choose between fries and a salad, but it wasn't much of a choice. She giggles about how happy she is that it's not poisoned. Her kids want to hear everything. Phyllis explains how she was trapped in a clinic with Sharon. She's not sure what the point was. It seemed to be some weird experiment to make her and Sharon work together. Summer points out that the person who did this hasn't been caught. That means she's still in danger. Her mom tells them she doesn't want them to worry more than they already have. She has Chance looking out for her, and she's determined to hunt down whoever did this. Daniel orders her not to go vigilante. He forces his mom to promise she will let this police take care of this. Phyllis explains that her captor knew all about her history with Sharon and gave them tests and riddles. She ended up being poisoned and her life reduced to a punchline for a riddle. The irony of it is that if it weren't for Sharon, she wouldn't be with her babies right now. She shares that she woke up and Sharon didn't have a heartbeat, so she had to get her alive and kicking again. Daniel asks if they worked through any of their mutual anger. With some difficulty, Phyllis admits they've developed a new appreciation for each other's strengths. Summer doesn't want to mention it, but asks if this could have been Ian's doing. It crossed her mom's mind, but Chance assured her he was cremated. This freak has to be found sooner rather than later. Phyllis says, "Hey, T. Billy's place." Sally tells him that being fed clues to find Sharon and Phyllis makes this whole debacle sound like the strangest kidnapping ever. She can't believe he just dove in on tracking them down. There was no way Billy wouldn't have done that. He couldn't turn away from the slightest chance of saving Phyllis. He starts beating himself up for thinking that Phyllis bailed on him instead of realizing something was wrong. Spectre assures him this is not his fault, and her captor must have told her to give her family a bogus story. As he has a drink, she tells him how glad she is that he's okay. Billy frets that if they'd been 5 minutes later, Phyllis and Sharon would have been poisoned by gas. This all sounds insane to Sally. At least there was a happy ending. Billy worries that whoever did this is still roaming the streets. They can only hope the cops find them before something even worse can be done to someone else. As Sally gives him a massage, Billy wishes he could slam whoever did this to Sharon and Phyllis. But he's more than happy to hang up his hero cape and put on his business jacket. Once he knows Phyllis is okay, he wants to concentrate on sending their company into the stratosphere. Caressing his neck, Sally says he's still a hero even if he's not wearing a cape. They kiss. Phyllis shows up at Billy's place and interrupts him and Sally. She tells them she's fine and everything is nice. She just wanted to have a conversation with Billy. Sally declares she needs to get back to the office and quickly exits. Shuddering, Phyllis admits to Billy that she's not fine. She needs her life back and he's the only one who can help her. As she apologizes, he tells her there's no need, but she insists because she blew up their timeline. Billy reminds her that she was kidnapped. He tells her to take some time and recover. Choking up, Phyllis explains that what helped her when she was in captivity wasn't only thinking of her kids, but thinking of what Abbott Communications could accomplish. Leaping up, she goes on about how they can change things for the better and build something great. It's important to her, and she needs it now. Today, not tomorrow, not one day when I feel better. Please, please, she begs. This is the only way she will get past what was taken from her. Billy is worried she'll take on more than she can handle right now, but she insists she needs the excitement and energy. When Phyllis brings up the press release, Billy awkwardly confesses that he was an idiot and put it out without her name attached to it when he thought she went AWOL on him. He's sorry for that. It was a mistake, and he realized that very quickly. Billy knows she would never bail on him, and he soon realized she was in trouble. Do you want me to work with you? She asks, or is this a mercy thing? He says he needs her fire. There's no one on the planet he'd rather do this with. When he asks for her forgiveness, she says of course she forgives him. He saved her life. Phyllis runs into Billy's arms and he squeezes her as she looks emotional. Chance and his crew search the basement of the medical clinic. He gives them instructions on what to look for but assumes that the culprit left no traces. The place has been trashed, but there could still be some fingerprints that don't belong to the two victims. If they can do that, they'll be one step closer to finding out who did this. As he searches, he pulls the covers off the gas tap and discovers that the device that triggered it to leak is still there. The detective calls for a bag and takes the device. Later, Chance walks into Crimson Lights and finds Nick and Sharon together. The cop explains that they bagged some items at the clinic and are waiting to see if they get a hit on the fingerprints. They were able to chase the purchase of a remote-controlled apparatus attached to the gas line. It was bought at a hardware store not far from the clinic. Chance says they will go through the store's surveillance footage to look for a suspect. Sharon says no one hated her as much as Phyllis, and now that isn't even true. The cop suspects the abductor could be someone they know. Nick is sure there is a whole list of people who are enemies of Phyllis. Sharon is sure that if anyone can catch the monster who did all this, it's Chance. The cop urges her to get some rest. Nick backs this up, reminding her of her plans to go to Sedona. On second thought, Nick suggests she take Faith to Europe to see Noah. She agrees that now would be a good time to go, but only if Nick goes with them. Tonight and her suite at the athletic club, Tracy picks up Alan's buzzing phone and sees a text that reads, "Security breach at clinic. Precautions enacted." As she puzzles over that, Alan enters, excited to take her out until he notices she's holding his phone. She explains his phone was making strange noises and she grabbed it, seeing the odd text. Taking the phone from her hand, Alan turns away for a minute and then claims he's been seeing alerts for a few days. Fearing he's been hacked, he hasn't opened his phone. That's why he was so stunned when he saw her with his phone. That makes sense to Tracy, who suggests he get a new phone. She suddenly remembers that he must have opened his phone to text her earlier. As they sit, he chuckles and says he must have been so excited to see her that he forgot about the risk. They talk about how his identity might have been stolen. He ponders what that would feel like and how useful it would be as a therapist to go through the kind of psychological devastation that must involve. It would be an interesting experiment to experience those feelings. She reminds him that he already did when his brother Martin was pretending to be him. Alan changes the topic back to their wedding and she throws out a few options, including the Abbott manse, once it has had its refresh. Tracy also considered Paris, since they have so many memories of getting to know each other there. She wants their wedding to be perfect. He's happy to marry her anywhere. As they kiss, his phone starts pinging with more alerts. She wonders what kind of hack this could be. Alan snaps about her asking about the phone and shuts it off. Apologizing, he explains he's just stressed out. He thinks they need to concentrate on being in love, and the idea of getting married in Paris is growing on him. He suggests they jump on a jet and check out some venues. Today's Young and the Restless recap airs in the USA on Monday, March 17, 2025, and airs one day ahead in Canada. We post our YNR recaps every weekday. Nick and Sharon are glad the kidnapping ordeal is behind them. Sharon is happy to be free to live her life, and thanks Nick for rescuing her. She's sorry for ever taking anything for granted. Nick can't imagine feeling that helpless. Sharon is determined to figure out who did this to her and Phyllis. She tells him that she and Phyllis actually wondered if their captor was one of their kids trying to teach them a lesson. They were desperate to find an answer. Nick wonders if the experiment was successful. Sharon believes that the experience was good for her relationship with Phyllis. She knows she is only alive because Phyllis gave her CPR, and I can't get over how much their captor knows about them. She wonders if he has some experience in psychology. She points out how similar this experiment is to aversion or desensitization therapy. Nick is just glad they made it out. Sally tells Billy this is the strangest kidnapping she's ever heard of. She worries about how Billy dove right in, though it could have been a trap. Billy hates that he didn't give Phyllis the benefit of the doubt. Sally doesn't want him to blame himself. Billy's glad they got there when they did. Sally reassures him that the story had a happy ending. Sally is amazed at how much of a friend Billy is to people. Billy promises to let Chance and the G-Speedy handle the case from now on. Daniel and Summer rush in to hug their mom. They pile into the dining room for lunch. Summer is happy to see her mother devouring her burger. Phyllis is thrilled to have a choice about her life again. Daniel wonders what the point of the kidnapping was. Phyllis says it was a weird experiment. Summer worries that Phyllis might still be in danger. Phyllis doesn't want her daughter to freak out. She has a lot of protections in place. Daniel shares in his sister's concerns. Phyllis insists the captor will not get away with it. Daniel refuses to hear about Phyllis going vigilante on this. Phyllis informs them about the details of the ordeal. She points out the irony that she wouldn't be sitting there without Sharon. She was shocked to wake up the next morning and Sharon had no heartbeat. Daniel wonders if they were able to work through the mutual anger they have. Phyllis admits they have a new appreciation for each other's strengths. Summer wonders if there is any chance that Ian survived. Phyllis says Chance told her Ian was cremated, and she believes him. Chance looks at the automatic valve on the gas line and calls for a bag. Alan wants to know what Tracy is doing with his phone. Tracy apologizes and insists she isn't snooping. Alan claims not to know what the messages are. He apologizes for being too intense about it and says he was scared his phone was being hacked. Tracy apologizes for not thinking about the phone being hacked. She suggests he get a new phone. Alan says it's silly. He never opened his phone, but he wanted to be careful about his information. Tracy reminds him he had to open his phone to text her about the ring. Sally and Billy's smooching is interrupted by the doorbell. Phyllis apologizes for interrupting. Sally leaves for the office so Billy and Phyllis can talk. Phyllis tells Billy that she is not okay. She needs her life back and Billy is the only one who can help her. She says she is ready to jump into Abbott Communications. Billy wants her to take some time. Phyllis tells him that Abbott Communications is one of the reasons she was able to remain strong. She needs it now, and it's the only thing that will help her get past all this. Alan suggests he was caught up in the moment and apologizes for blowing up at Tracy. Tracy hopes she didn't cause his information to be leaked. Alan says that as a therapist, it would be interesting to feel what it's like to have your identity stolen. Tracy reminds him that he's already experienced that in Paris, when Martin pretended to be him. Alan wants to get back on the topic of wedding details. That is one of Tracy's favorite subjects. Alan's phone continues to send distracting alerts. Tracy wonders what kind of hack it could be, warning that the gas expulsion attachment has been removed. Alan wants to know why Tracy keeps asking about the phone. He can't control what the hacker does. He turns the phone off and quickly apologizes for his sharpness. Tracy sits silently. Alan suggests getting married in Paris might not be a bad idea. Chance enters and tells them they are testing several items for a fingerprint hit. Sharon hopes they get it, and Nick knows it's a long shot but hopes it plays out. Chance says the landlord confirmed the gas-triggering device was not there before. It was purchased at a hardware store not far from the clinic. The police are pulling camera footage from the hardware store. He hopes Sharon can recognize a face. Billy tells Phyllis he understands where she is coming from, but he doesn't want her to overdo it. Phyllis says she knows what she needs. Billy confesses that he thought Phyllis went AWOL on him. He apologizes for being an idiot and sending out the press release without her name on it. Phyllis wants to know if Billy wants her to work with him. Billy insists she is the only one he wants to do it with and asks her forgiveness. Phyllis forgives him and thanks him for saving her life. Sharon thanks Chance for being so thorough. Nick and Chance suggest that she go to Sedona and get some rest. Sharon says she'll take Faith and visit Noah if Nick joins them. Monday, March 17th, 2025. The Young and the Restless. Scene 1. Crimson Lights. The familiar hum of the coffee shop filled the air as Nick sat down across from Sharon in their usual booth at Crimson Lights. A warm smile spread across his face as he handed her a big, gooey brownie and a lavender latte, her favorite. She had just gotten off the phone with Mariah and Noah, and after that, had hugged Faith so tight that the young girl had squeaked in surprise. Sharon's face softened as she recalled that moment. It had been the first time she had held her children close since everything went down. It felt like the most important thing in the world. "I don't know what I'd do without them," Sharon said, taking a small sip of the latte, savoring the calming aroma. "All that time, all I could think of was how much I missed them." Nick looked at her with admiration in his eyes. "You're a hero in my book," he said. "You made it through hell, and now you're here with your kids. That's what matters." Sharon smiled softly, her hand finding his across the table. "Now I'm too, all because of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll never take the little things for granted again. Like sitting here, just living life. Being surrounded by people, being free," Nick added, his voice steady and calm, as if he understood just how important this moment was for her. Sharon paused, her gaze drifting to the window, as if she could see the whole world beyond it. "And now I have to figure out who did this to me. We need to know who's behind all of it, so it never happens again." Her words lingered in the air, and Nick nodded. He didn't say it aloud, but he knew Sharon wasn't going to stop until she had answers. "Well, whoever they are, they've got some serious issues," Nick remarked, shaking his head. "This was some twisted form of therapy, like they were trying to teach us a lesson. Or maybe it was just all for some sick entertainment. But one thing's for sure, Sharon, whoever did this is not going to get away with it." Sharon sighed, her heart heavy with the realization that the person behind the ordeal had known so much about their history, their struggles. "It was more like an attempted exorcism," she said, her voice a little brittle. "They knew just what buttons to push, the things that would make us react. It was psychological warfare." Nick's brow furrowed. "I don't know who would do something like that, but I'm glad you're okay. We'll figure it out." Sharon nodded, still shaken by everything, but her resolve was stronger than ever. "I want to believe it helped," she said quietly. "That it was cathartic in a way. We were forced to face our issues, and to save each other." As Nick listened, he felt a weight lift from his chest. They had made it through, but he couldn't deny that he wanted to see justice served. Scene 2. The Athletic Club, Phyllis's reunion. Phyllis stepped down the stairs of the athletic club, her eyes scanning the foyer with a nervous energy. Her breath caught when she saw them, her children. Summer, Daniel, and Lucy, running toward her with open arms. The tears that had been building up inside her finally spilled over as she embraced them, her heart swelling with the love and relief of seeing them safe. "I was so worried about you," Summer said, holding on to her mother tightly. "We didn't know where you were. What happened?" "I'm okay now," Phyllis reassured them, her voice shaky with emotion. She led them into the dining room, where a meal was already waiting. A burger, fries, and a large glass of red wine were placed in front of her. Phyllis dug in, the food comforting in a way she hadn't realized she needed. Daniel sat next to her, his eyes wide with concern. "What happened, Mom? You've been gone for so long." Phyllis took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. "I was trapped in a clinic with Sharon. It was some kind of experiment. They wanted us to work together somehow. And I don't know what the point was. It felt like we were pawns in someone's twisted game." Summer's brow furrowed. "So, you don't know who did this?" Phyllis nodded, then took another sip of wine, her face grim. "I have no idea. But whoever it is, they're still out there. And that's what scares me." "I don't want you doing anything crazy, Mom," Daniel warned, his voice firm. "We've got Chance looking into this, right? Let him handle it. He'll find the person who did this." Phyllis gave her son a half-hearted smile. "I promise I won't go vigilante. But I need to know who did this. They knew everything about me and Sharon. Our history, our secrets. It was all part of some twisted puzzle." Her children exchanged worried looks. Summer hesitated before asking, "Do you think it could have been Ian?" Phyllis froze, her eyes narrowing. It was a thought that had crossed her mind. But she shook her head. "Chance assured me he was cremated. It's not him. Whoever this is, there's someone new. And they need to be found." Scene 3. Billy's place, a troubled mind. Meanwhile, at Billy's place, Sally sat beside him on the couch, her hand resting on his as he gazed at the phone in his hand. His thoughts were consumed by what had just transpired, the harrowing events that had led him to search for Phyllis and Sharon, risking everything for their safety. "I still can't believe we almost lost them," Billy muttered, shaking his head. "I should have realized something was wrong. If we'd been 5 minutes later." Sally reached for him, her voice gentle. "Billy, it's not your fault. You did everything you could. You didn't know. No one did." Billy sighed, his hand gripping the glass tightly. "It just feels insane. Like this whole thing was just some sick game to whoever did it. A twisted experiment. And now, they're still out there. What if they do this to someone else?" Sally gave him a reassuring smile. "We're not alone in this. The police are on it. And you, Billy Abbott, are still a hero, even if you're not wearing a cape." Billy gave a small chuckle, leaning in to kiss her. He had found solace in her words. For now, they were okay. Phyllis and Sharon had made it out alive. But the unknown threat still loomed, and he knew they couldn't rest until it was dealt with. Scene 4. The investigation. Back at the clinic, Chance and his team scoured the basement, searching for any trace of the person behind the madness. The place had been trashed, as if someone had torn through it in a hurry. But Chance, ever the detective, was determined. He knew there had to be something left behind, some clue, some sign of who was responsible. He pulled the covers off a gas tap and found something chilling, a device that had triggered the gas leak. The device was still there, sitting like an ominous reminder of the danger that had almost claimed Phyllis and Sharon's lives. "Bag this," Chance ordered his team, his eyes narrowing. "We need to find out where this came from. It could be our key to finding them." Later, Chance walked into Crimson Lights, where Nick and Sharon were sitting. He was holding a bag with the device inside, a grim expression on his face. "We found something," Chance said. A remote-control device attached to the gas line. It was purchased at a hardware store not far from here. "We're going through the surveillance footage now, but we're still trying to figure out who's behind all of this." Sharon's heart skipped a beat as she processed the information. "You think it could be someone we know?" Chance didn't answer immediately. "It's a possibility. The person behind this knew exactly how to push your buttons, Sharon. It could be someone with a very personal agenda." Nick stood up, putting a hand on Sharon's shoulder. "Don't worry. Whoever did this won't get away with it." Chance gave them a reassuring smile. "We'll catch them, I promise." Sharon looked at Nick, her heart full of gratitude. "I don't know what I would do without you. But I think it's time we go away. Take Faith to see Noah in Europe. It could be the break we need." Nick nodded, his voice soft but resolute. "I'll go with you. We'll get away, focus on what matters, and leave the rest behind for now." Sharon smiled, feeling the weight lift off her shoulders. Maybe this was exactly what she needed. Scene 5. Tracy and Alan's wedding plans. In her suite at the athletic club, Tracy sat with Alan, who had just walked in, excitement written all over his face. But Tracy was holding something in her hand, Alan's phone, which was buzzing incessantly. "What's this?" she asked, reading a text that flashed on the screen. "Security breach at clinic. Precautions enacted." Alan's face went pale as he hurried over to snatch the phone from her hands. "I've been getting strange alerts for days," he explained, his voice low. "I thought I was being hacked. I didn't open anything." Tracy raised an eyebrow. "Then why was it in your hand earlier?" Alan chuckled nervously, avoiding her gaze. "I must have forgotten, with all the excitement of seeing you." He quickly changed the topic, eager to distract her from the issue at hand. "How about we talk wedding plans instead? Where should we have it?" Tracy smiled at his attempt to steer the conversation. "Paris is still a possibility, you know. We had such a magical time there." Alan's eyes twinkled. "Paris sounds perfect. Let's do it." But before they could continue, Alan's phone started pinging with more alerts, and Tracy couldn't ignore it anymore. "What's going on?" she asked, her concern growing. Alan snapped, frustration evident in his tone. "Please, Tracy, let's just focus on us right now. I don't need any more stress." Tracy was taken aback, but she nodded. "Okay, but this is something we need to talk about." Despite the tension, Alan was insistent that they concentrate on their love and their upcoming wedding. He promised they would figure everything else out later. With that, the couple kissed, hopeful about their future despite the uncertainties around them. Scene 6. The closing. Back at the clinic, Chance was still working tirelessly, but as he prepared to leave, he knew one thing for sure. Whoever was responsible for this twisted game would pay. And with that certainty, the lives of those affected could finally begin to heal. But as the pieces fell into place, one question remained. Who is behind the madness? Only time would tell. Monday, March 17th, 2025. Today on The Young and the Restless, Phyllis is reunited with her kids, Chance discovers some clues, and Sharon asks Nick to accompany her to Europe. Nick sits down across from Sharon in a table at Crimson Lights and gives her a lavender latte and a large brownie. She just hung up with Mariah and talked to Noah on the phone. She embraced Faith so tightly that she made her squeak as soon as she arrived home. She thought about her children the entire time she was in captivity. Nick asks if she wants to return home to recuperate and expresses admiration for her actions. Sharon wants to be here, among people who are free and living their lives. "I am too now, thanks to you," she replies, grabbing his hand. She assures him that she will never again take the most straightforward decisions for granted. Determining who is responsible for all of this will be a part of regaining control over her life. At one point, Sharon acknowledges, she and Phyllis wondered if the kidnapper may be someone they knew, possibly even one of their own children. Whoever was in charge was so familiar with their past that they were desperate enough to question whether one of their children was attempting to discipline them. Nick is certain that none of their children would act in such a way. To him, this all sounds like extreme therapy. She describes it as more akin to an attempted exorcism. Did it succeed, he wonders. Ironically, Sharon would like to think that the experience was therapeutic. They were compelled to rescue one another's lives and confront some of their problems. Nick finds it absurd that all of this was done for amusement. According to Sharon, the voice appeared to be conducting a psychological test. This must have been the work of someone with some psychology training. They were aware of which games would elicit the desired reactions. She finds herself thinking about how much it resembled aversion therapy. Nick is simply relieved that they are all right, describing it as a twisted therapeutic intervention. In order to prevent it from happening again, they must now identify the perpetrator. Phyllis enters the athletic club's foyer after descending the stairs. Her children burst through the spinning doors as she hurriedly looks around. The children claim that after enjoying a group hug, they have been quite anxious. Now that she has seen her children, Phyllis is all right. They take up residence in the dining room. She is presented with a big glass of red wine and a burger and fries. As they watch her eat, the kids are beaming. Although it wasn't much of a choice, Phyllis liked that she could pick between fries and a salad. She laughs as she expresses her happiness that it isn't contaminated. Her children want to hear it all. Phyllis describes how she and Sharon ended up stranded in a clinic. She doesn't know what the purpose was. Summer notes that the person who did this hasn't been apprehended. It appeared to be some strange experiment to force her and Sharon to cooperate. She is therefore still in risk. She doesn't want them to worry any more than they already do, her mother tells them. Chance is watching out for her, and she's going to find out who did this. She is told not to become a vigilante by Daniel. He makes his mother swear that she will allow the police to handle things. According to Phyllis, her captor offered them challenges and puzzles since they were aware of her past relationship with Sharon. In the end, she was poisoned, and her life was reduced to a riddle punchline. Ironically, she wouldn't be with her children at this moment if it weren't for Sharon. She explains that she had to get Sharon back to life after discovering that she had no heartbeat when she woke up. Daniel inquires as to if any of their shared rage has been resolved. Phyllis acknowledges that they've grown to appreciate one another's qualities, albeit with some challenges. Summer asks whether Ian could have been responsible for this, but she doesn't want to bring it up. Her mother thought about it, but Chance reassured her that he was cremated. At Billy's house, Sally tells Billy that being given clues to find Sharon and Phyllis makes this whole situation seem like the most bizarre kidnapping ever. This freak has to be found sooner rather than later, Phyllis says. She finds it hard to believe he just jumped right into finding them. Billy would have done that anyhow. The smallest possibility of saving Phyllis was too great for him to ignore. He begins to criticize himself for assuming that Phyllis abandoned him rather than seeing that something was amiss. He is reassured by Spectra that this is not his fault and that her kidnapper must have instructed her to fabricate a lie for her family. She expresses her happiness that he's all right while he drinks. Billy worries that Phyllis and Sharon would have been gas poisoned if they had arrived 5 minutes later. Sally thinks all of this is crazy. There was a happy ending, at least. Billy fears that the perpetrator is still on the loose. As Sally gives him a massage, Billy wants he could smack whoever did this to Sharon and Phyllis. All they can do is pray the police discover them before someone else is harmed. However, he is more than content to put on his business jacket and hang up his hero cape. He wants to focus on taking their business to the next level as soon as he is certain that Phyllis is all right. Sally strokes his neck and remarks that, even without a cape, he is still a hero. Billy and Sally share a kiss before Phyllis interrupts them when she arrives at Billy's house. She claims that everything is nice and that she is fine, saying that she simply wanted to talk to Billy. Sally says she has to return to the workplace and leaves right away. With a shudder, Phyllis confides in Billy that she's not feeling well. He is the one person who can help her regain her life. He informs her that there is no need as she apologizes, but she is adamant because she ruined their chronology. She is reminded by Billy that she was abducted. He advises her to rest for a while. Phyllis, who is crying, says that thinking on what Abbott Communications could achieve rather than just her children helped her during her captivity. She jumps up and continues talking about how they can create something amazing and improve everything. She needs it right now, and it's vital to her. Not tomorrow, not today, not until I feel better. She pleads, please, please. She can only overcome what was taken from her in this way. When Phyllis brings up the press release, Billy sheepishly admits that he was a fool and published it without her name on it when he believed she had gone missing on him. Billy is concerned that she will take on more than she can do at this time, but she believes she needs the thrill and energy. He apologizes for that. He instantly understood that it was a mistake. Billy quickly sensed she was in trouble, but he knew she would never desert him. Would you like me to collaborate with you? Is this a matter of mercy? She asks. I need her fire, he says. He wouldn't want to do this with anyone else on the earth. She responds, of course I forgive him. He saved my life, when he begs for her forgiveness. Phyllis looks upset as she jumps into Billy's arms, and he gives her a squeeze. Chance and his team examined the medical clinic's basement. Although he instructs them on what to search for, he believes the criminal left no evidence. Even though the area has been destroyed, some fingerprints that don't belong to the two victims might still be present. They'll be one step closer to identifying the perpetrator, if they can accomplish it. Pulling the covers off the gas tap while searching, he finds that the equipment that caused the leak is still there. After requesting a bag and removing the gadget, Chance enters Crimson Lights and discovers Nick and Sharon together. The officer explains that they are waiting to see if they get a hit on the fingerprints after bagging some goods at the clinic. The procurement of a remote-controlled device connected to the gas line was successfully pursued. It was purchased at a hardware store near the clinic. Chance said that in order to find a culprit, they will examine the store's security footage. Sharon claims that Phyllis despised her more than everyone else, but that isn't even true anymore. The police officer believes they may know the kidnapper. Nick is certain that there is a long list of Phyllis's adversaries. Sharon is certain that Chance will be the one to apprehend the monster responsible for all of this. The officer advises her to rest. Nick supports this by reminding her of her Sedona trip plans. Nick then proposes that she accompany Faith to see Noah in Europe. When Tracy answers Alan's buzzing phone in her suite at the athletic club, she gets a text that says, "Security breach at clinic." She agrees that now would be a good time to depart, but only if Nick goes with them. Precautions taken. While she struggles with that, Alan walks in eager to take her out, but he discovers she is holding his phone. She explains that she grabbed his phone after hearing strange noises and noticing the bizarre messages on it. After a minute of turning away, Alan takes the phone from her hand and says he has been receiving alerts for a few days. He hasn't unlocked his phone out of fear that it has been compromised. He was so taken aback when he observed her using his phone for that reason. Tracy says it seems logical and advises him to purchase a new phone. He must have opened his phone to text her earlier, she realizes abruptly. He laughs as they sit and remarks that he must have forgotten the danger because he was so happy to see her. They discuss the possibility that his identity was stolen. He wonders what it would be like to experience that and how beneficial it would be for a therapist to go through the psychological turmoil that must be involved. To experiencing those emotions would be an intriguing experiment. When his brother Martin was posing as him, she tells him that he already did. Alan returns the conversation to their wedding and offers a few alternatives, such as the Abbott Manse, when it has been refreshed. Given how many memories they have of meeting in Paris, Tracy also thought about the city. Her goal is for their wedding to be flawless. Anywhere is a good place for him to marry her. His phone begins to ping with more alerts as they kiss. What sort of hack might this be, she wonders. When she asks about the phone, Alan yells at her and turns it off. He apologizes and says he's simply anxious. He believes that they should focus on their love, and he is becoming more and more interested in the notion of being married in Paris. He proposes that they board a plane and visit certain locations. The Young and the Restless recap for today airs in the United States on Monday, March 17, 2025, and in Canada one day earlier. Every Wednesday, we share our Y&R recaps online. Both Nick and Sharon are relieved that the kidnapping experience is over. Sharon expresses gratitude to Nick for saving her life and is content to be free to enjoy her life. Nick can't fathom feeling that powerless, and she apologizes for ever taking anything for granted. Finding out who did this to her and Phyllis is Sharon's first priority. She explains to him that she and Phyllis truly questioned whether their kidnapper was an attempt by one of their children to discipline them. They were in a desperate search for a solution. Nick questions whether the experiment worked. According to Sharon, the encounter improved her friendship with Phyllis. She can't believe how much their captor knows about them and knows she is only alive because Phyllis performed CPR on her. She questions whether he has any prior psychology experience. She highlights the parallels between this experiment and desensitization or aversion therapy. Nick is simply happy that they arrived. Billy is informed by Sally that this is the most bizarre kidnapping she has ever heard of. Billy hates that he didn't give Phyllis the benefit of the doubt, and she worries about how he jumped right in, even though it might have been a trap. He shouldn't blame himself, according to Sally. Billy is happy that they arrived at that time. Sally tells him the tale ended well. She is astounded by how much of a friend Billy is to others. Daniel and Summer rush in to embrace their mother as Billy vows to let Chance and the G-Speedy handle the matter going forward. For lunch, they cram themselves into the dining room. Phyllis is overjoyed to regain control over her life once more, and Summer is delighted to see her mother gorging on her burger. Daniel questions why the kidnapping occurred. According to Phyllis, the experiment was strange. Summer fears that there may still be Phyllis in danger. The last thing Phyllis wants is for her kid to panic. There are numerous safeguards in place for her. Daniel agrees with his sister's worries. Phyllis is adamant that the kidnapper will not escape punishment. Phyllis tells them about the event, but Daniel doesn't want to hear about her being a vigilante. She draws attention to the irony that without Sharon, she wouldn't be seated there. When she woke up the following morning, she was shocked to see that Sharon's heart was dead. Daniel questions whether they were able to resolve their shared rage. They have a new appreciation for each other's strengths, Phyllis acknowledges. Summer questions whether Ian has a chance of surviving. Chance looks at the gas line's automated valve and calls for a bag. Alan demands to know what Tracy is doing with his phone. Phyllis claims that Chance told her that Ian was cremated, and she believes him. Tracy says she's not snooping and apologizes. According to Alan, he has no idea what the messages are. He says he was afraid his phone was being hacked and apologizes for being overly dramatic. Tracy says she didn't consider the possibility of the phone being hacked. She advises him to purchase a new phone. Although Alan claims it's absurd, he wanted to be cautious with his information and never unlocked his phone. The doorbell interrupts Sally and Billy's smooching, and Phyllis apologizes for disturbing them. Sally leaves for the office so that Billy and Phyllis can speak after Tracy reminds him that he had to open his phone to text her about the ring. Billy is the only person who can help Phyllis, who informs him that she is not okay and that she needs her life back. Billy wants her to take her time, but she claims she is prepared to dive right into Abbott Communications. Phyllis informs him that she was able to stay strong in part because to Abbott Communications. Alan says he was caught up in the moment and apologizes for blowing up at Tracy, but she hopes she didn't cause his information to be leaked. She needs it now, and it's the only thing that would help her move past all of this. As a therapist, Alan feels it would be fascinating to experience what it's like to have your identity stolen. Alan wants to return to the subject of wedding specifics, but Tracy reminds him that he has already gone through that in Paris, when Martin posed as him. One of Tracy's favorite topics is that Alan's phone keeps making annoying notifications. Alan wants to know why Tracy keeps bringing up the phone, and Tracy wonders what kind of hack it might be, pointing out that the gas expulsion attachment has been taken off. He has no influence over the hacker's actions. He promptly apologizes for his sharpness and switches off the phone. Tracy is sitting quietly. Alan says it might not be a bad idea to be married in Paris. Chance comes in and informs them that they are checking a number of items for fingerprint hits. Nick hopes it works out even though he thinks it's unlikely, and Sharon hopes they get it. Chance claims that the landlord attested to the absence of the gas triggering mechanism previously. A hardware store near the clinic is where it was bought. The hardware store's cameras are being retrieved by the police. Billy tells Phyllis that while he can appreciate her perspective, he doesn't want her to go overboard. He hopes Sharon will be able to identify a face. According to Phyllis, she is aware of her requirements. Billy admits that he believed Phyllis had abandoned him. Phyllis wants to know if Billy wants her to collaborate with him. He apologizes for being a fool and putting out the press release without her name on it. Billy begs for her forgiveness and maintains that she is the only person he wants to do it with. Sharon appreciates Chance for being so thorough, and Phyllis forgives him and expresses gratitude for saving her life. She should go to Sedona and rest, Nick and Chance advise. If Nick goes with them, Sharon says she'll take Faith to see Noah. Monday, March 17, 2025. Today on The Young and the Restless, Sharon asks Nick to accompany her to Europe. Chance discovers some clues, and Phyllis reunites with her children. As Nick settles in across from Sharon in a table at Crimson Lights, he brings her a large brownie and a lavender latte. She just got off the phone with Mariah and spoke with Noah. As soon as she arrived home, she held Faith so tightly that she made her squeak. She kept thinking about her children throughout her captivity. Nick compliments her on her efforts and invites her to return home to recover. Sharon wants to be surrounded by individuals who are living their life freely. "Now I am too, all because of you," she says, grabbing his hand. She promises him she will never take the simplest decisions for granted again. Finding out who is responsible for all of this will be part of regaining control of her life. Sharon admits that she and Phyllis considered whether the kidnapper could be someone they knew, possibly one of their own children. The responsible party was well-versed in the family's history, leading them to believe that one of their children was attempting to teach them something. Nick is convinced that none of their children would do such a thing. It all sounds like radical therapy to him. It was more like an attempted exorcism, she tells me. He inquires whether it was successful. Sharon prefers to imagine that the ordeal was ironically cathartic. They were forced to confront some of their difficulties and rescue one another's lives. Nick finds it crazy that all of this was done for someone's amusement. Sharon explains that the voice appeared to be conducting some sort of psychological experiment. The guy behind this must have some psychology background. They knew which games would elicit the desired responses. She can't help but remember how similar it was to aversion therapy. Nick is just pleased they are okay after what he calls a twisted therapeutic intervention. Now they must discover out who is responsible so that it does not happen again. Phyllis comes down the steps of the athletic club and into the foyer. She looks around anxiously until her children rush through the spinning doors. After enjoying a collective hug, the kids admit to being worried sick. Phyllis is okay now that she has seen her babies. They settle into the dining room. A burger and fries are laid in front of her, along with a tall glass of red wine. The children are beaming as they watch her devour. Phyllis liked the fact that she could select between fries and a salad, but it wasn't much of an option. She grins about how relieved she is that it is not poisoned. Her children want to hear everything. Phyllis tells how she became locked in a clinic with Sharon. She isn't sure what the point was. It appeared to be some bizarre experiment designed to force her and Sharon to collaborate. Summer points out that the perpetrator has yet to be apprehended. This suggests she is still in risk. Her mother informs them that she does not want them to worry any more than they already have. She has Chance looking out for her, and she is determined to find out who did this. Daniel tells her not to go vigilante. He forces his mother to pledge that she will let the cops handle the situation. Phyllis claims that her abductor was aware of her history with Sharon and administered tests and riddles. She was poisoned, and her life became a punchline in a riddle. The irony is that without Sharon, she would not be with her babies right now. She explains that when she woke up, Sharon had no heartbeat, so she had to revive her. Daniel inquires as to whether they had dealt with any of their mutual resentment. Phyllis reluctantly confesses that they've developed a new appreciation for each other's strengths. Summer doesn't want to bring it up, but she wonders if Ian was involved. Chance reassured her mother that he had been cremated. This freak has to be found sooner rather than later, Phyllis says. At Billy's apartment, Sally informs him that being handed clues to find Sharon and Phyllis makes the whole thing sound like the craziest kidnapping ever. She can't believe he just jumped right into tracking them down. Billy would definitely have done that. He couldn't reject down even the slightest chance of saving Phyllis. He begins beating himself up for believing that Phyllis abandoned him instead of realizing something was wrong. Spectra assures him that this is not his fault and that her kidnapper must have instructed her to tell her family a lie. She tells him she is relieved he is okay, while he drinks. Billy worries that if they had arrived 5 minutes later, Phyllis and Sharon would have been poisoned by gas. To Sally, this all sounds ridiculous. Fortunately, there was a happy ending. Billy is concerned that whomever committed this is still roaming the streets. They can only pray that the cops discover them before something worse happens to someone else. As Sally massages him, Billy wishes he could smash whoever did this to Sharon and Phyllis. But he's content to hang up his hero cape and put on his business jacket. Once he knows Phyllis is okay, he wants to focus on propelling their firm to new heights. Sally caresses his neck, saying he's still a hero even though he's not wearing a cape. They kiss. Phyllis arrives to Billy's apartment and interrupts him and Sally. She tells them she's fine and everything is nice. She just wanted to talk to Billy. Sally announces that she needs to return to the workplace and swiftly leaves. Phyllis shudders and reveals to Billy that she is not feeling well. She needs her life back, and he is the only person who can help her. As she apologizes, he tells her there is no need, but she insists because she messed up their timetable. Billy reminds her that she has been kidnapped. He tells her to take her time and heal. Phyllis chokes up as she recounts that what helped her in captivity was not only thinking about her children, but also about what Abbott Communications could do. Leaping up, she discusses how they can make things better and create something magnificent. It's vital to her, and she needs it right now. Today, not tomorrow, not the day when I feel better. Please, she begs. This is the only way she can overcome what has been taken from her. Billy is concerned that she would take on more than she can handle right now, but she insists that she needs the thrill and energy. When Phyllis brings up the press release, Billy sheepishly admits that he was an idiot and put it out without her name attached since he assumed she had gone AWOL on him.
He's sorry about it.
It was a mistake, which he understood very immediately. Billy knows she would never abandon him, and he quickly understood she was in peril. Do you want me to work with you? She inquires, or is this a mercy thing? He claims he needs her fire. He'd rather do this alone than with anyone else on the earth. When he asks for her forgiveness, she answers, "Of course I forgive him. He saved my life." Phyllis runs into Billy's arms, and he squeezes her as she appears distraught. Chance and his crew explore the medical clinic's basement. He instructs them on what to look for, but feels the perpetrator left no evidence. The location has been demolished, yet there may still be some fingerprints that do not belong to the two victims. If they can do that, they'll be one step closer to determining who did it. As he searches, he removes the covers from the gas tap and learns that the device that caused it to leak is still present. The investigator requests a bag and grabs the gadget. Later, Chance walks into Crimson Lights and discovers Nick and Sharon together. The cop explains that they bagged some items at the clinic and are waiting to see if the fingerprints match. They were able to pursue the purchase of a remote-controlled device connected to the gas line. It was purchased at a hardware store not far from the clinic. Chance said they'll examine through the store's camera footage to find a suspect. Sharon claims that no one despised her more than Phyllis, which is now proven false. The cop assumes that the abduction is someone they know. Nick is certain that Phyllis has a long number of adversaries. Sharon is confident that Chance will be the one to apprehend the monster responsible for all of this. The cop tells her to rest. Nick backs this up, reminding her of her plans to visit Sedona. On second consideration, Nick proposes she take Faith to Europe to meet Noah. Tracy agrees to go immediately, but only if Nick joins them. In her suite at the athletic club, she picks up Alan's phone and sees a text message that reads, "Security breach at clinic. Precautions have been taken." As she mulls over this, Alan enters, eager to take her out, until he notices she is holding his phone. She explains that his phone was making strange noises, so she grabbed it after seeing the bizarre text. Alan takes the phone from her, turns away for a while, and then claims he's been receiving notifications for several days. He hasn't unlocked his phone out of fear of being hacked. That's why he was astounded when he spotted her holding his phone. Tracy agrees and suggests he purchase a new phone. She realizes he must have opened his phone to text her earlier. As they sit, he chuckles, saying he must have been so pleased to see her that he forgot about the danger. They discuss how his identity could have been taken. He wonders how it would feel and how effective it would be as a therapist to go through such psychological catastrophe. It would be a fascinating experiment to experience those emotions. She tells him that he already did when his brother Martin pretended to be him. Alan shifts the conversation back to their wedding, and she suggests a few venues, including the Abbott Manse once it has been refreshed. Tracy also considered Paris, where they spent so much time getting to know each other. She wants her wedding to be flawless. He'd be thrilled to marry her anyplace. As they kiss, his phone begins to ping with new alerts. She wonders what type of hack this could be. Alan snaps when she asks about the phone and turns it off. He apologizes, explaining that he is just stressed out. He believes they should focus on being in love, and the notion of getting married in Paris is growing on him. He proposes they board an aircraft and visit several sites. Today's Young and the Restless recap airs in the United States on Monday, March 17, 2025, and one day earlier in Canada. We provide YNR recaps every day. Nick and Sharon are relieved that the kidnapping nightmare is over. Sharon is grateful to Nick for rescuing her and for allowing her to live her life freely. She apologizes for ever taking anything for granted. Nick cannot comprehend feeling so helpless. Sharon is determined to find out who did this to her and Phyllis. She informs him that she and Phyllis had questioned if their captor was one of their children, trying to teach them a lesson. They were yearning for an explanation. Nick wonders whether the experiment was a success. Sharon believes that the event benefited her relationship with Phyllis. She is aware that she is only alive because Phyllis performed CPR on her, and she is stunned by how much information their kidnapper has on them. She wonders if he has any experience in psychology. She notes how similar this experiment is to aversion or desensitization therapy. Nick is simply pleased they got out. Sally informs Billy that this is the craziest kidnapping she has ever heard of. She is concerned about Billy's hasty entry into what may have been a trap. Billy resents the fact that he did not give Phyllis the benefit of doubt. Sally does not want him to blame himself. Billy is delighted they arrived when they did. Sally assures him that the narrative has a happy ending. Sally is astounded by how much of a friend Billy is to others. Billy assures that Chance and the GCPD will handle the case from now on. Daniel and Summer rush in to hug their mother. They gather in the dining room for lunch. Summer is delighted to see her mother savoring her burger, and Phyllis is overjoyed to have a say again in her life. Daniel wonders what the purpose of the kidnapping was. Phyllis describes it as a strange experiment. Summer worries that Phyllis is still in danger. Phyllis does not want her kid to stress out. She has many safeguards in place. Daniel shares his sister's concerns, and Phyllis insists that the captor will not get away with it. Daniel refuses to hear of Phyllis's vigilantism in this matter. Phyllis informs them of the circumstances of the ordeal. She acknowledges the irony that she would not be sitting there without Sharon. She was taken aback when she awoke the next morning to find Sharon's heart stopped. Daniel wonders if they were able to resolve their mutual animosity. Phyllis confesses that they have a new appreciation for each other's strengths. Summer worries if Ian survived. Phyllis trusts Chance when he tells her Ian was cremated. Chance inspects the gas line's automated valve and requests a bag. Alan is curious about Tracy's phone usage. Tracy apologizes and says she isn't spying. Alan states he does not know what the messages are. He apologizes for being overly concerned and admits he was worried his phone was being hacked. Tracy apologizes for not thinking about the phone being hacked. She proposes that he acquire a new phone. Alan admits it's ridiculous. He never unlocked his phone, but he wanted to be cautious with his information. Tracy tells him that he had to open his phone to text her about the ring. The doorbell interrupts Sally and Billy's kissing. Phyllis apologizes for interrupting. Sally goes for the workplace so Billy and Phyllis can talk. Phyllis expresses her distress to Billy and seeks his assistance in reclaiming her life. She thinks she's ready to start at Abbott Communications, but Billy wants her to take her time. Phyllis informs him that Abbott Communications is one of the reasons she has remained strong. She needs it right now, and it's the only thing that can help her get through this. Alan claims he was caught up in the moment and apologizes for blowing out at Tracy. Tracy hopes she didn't cause his information to be released. Alan suggests that as a therapist, it would be interesting to experience what it's like to have your identity stolen. Tracy reminds him that he's previously been through it in Paris, when Martin pretended to be him. Alan wants to return to the topic of wedding plans. That is one of Tracy's favorite topics. Alan's phone continues to send distracting notifications. Tracy wonders what type of hack it is, noting that the gas expulsion attachment has been removed. Alan asks why Tracy keeps inquiring about the phone. The hacker's actions are beyond his control. He gets off the phone and instantly apologizes for his harshness. Tracy sits quietly. Alan thinks that getting married in Paris might not be a bad idea. Chance comes, and informs them that they are testing numerous items for fingerprint hits. Sharon hopes they get it, and Nick understands it's a long shot but hopes it works out. According to Chance, the landlord verified that the gas-triggering mechanism did not previously exist. It was acquired from a hardware store close to the clinic. Police are retrieving CCTV footage from the hardware store. He hopes Sharon can recognize a face. Billy tells Phyllis that he understands her point of view, but he doesn't want her to go over the top. Phyllis claims to know exactly what she needs. Billy admits that he thought Phyllis went missing on him. He apologizes for being an idiot and putting out the press release without her name on it. Phyllis asks if Billy wants her to work with him. Billy claims that she is the only one he wants to do it with and requests her forgiveness. Phyllis forgives him and praises him for saving her life. Sharon appreciates Chance's thoroughness. Nick and Chance recommend her go to Sedona for some recuperation. Sharon says she will take Faith to see Noah if Nick joins them.